Dead men tell no tales, but their ships speak volumes. Welcome to the Cursed Compass, where we explore the darkest maritime mysteries.
All right, today we are diving deep into one of the greatest maritime mysteries of all time, the ghost ship, the Carroll A. We're talking about a massive, majestic sailing vessel found totally abandoned, its entire crew just gone. It's a puzzle that for over a century, nobody has been able to solve.
And really, that's the question that just gets under your skin, right? How does a 250-foot schooner with a full crew and its sail set just end up empty? How is that even possible? Well, to get to the bottom of this, the story of the mystery really begins at its end, with the discovery of the wreck itself.
So let's go there. Let's talk about the eerie discovery of this ghost ship. Okay, so picture this. It's dawn, January 31st, 1921. A Coast Guard patrolman is scanning the horizon off the coast of North Carolina, and he sees a massive five-masted ship stuck hard on Diamond Shoals. Now, this spot is no joke. They call it the graveyard of the Atlantic for a very good reason. But what was truly chilling, what made the hair on his neck stand up, was that all of its sails were still set. It was like it had sailed itself directly onto the rocks. There were no distress signals and absolutely no sign of life.
And the crew? All 11 of them. Just gone. Vanished into thin air. Not a single person was found on board, and not a single one of them was ever seen or heard from again.
So when rescuers finally managed to board the ship, the mystery just got a whole lot deeper. The scene was a complete mess of contradictions. On the one hand, things like the ship's logbook, all the important navigation equipment, and both lifeboats were missing. That just screams planned abandonment, right? It looks like the crew left in an orderly way. But then their personal belongings were also gone, which is kind of strange if you're leaving in a hurry. But then you have all this other stuff that points to violence. The steering gear was completely smashed, the rudder was disengaged, and maybe the creepiest detail of all, down in the galley, a meal was left half prepared, as if whatever happened, it happened so suddenly that it interrupted something as normal as making dinner.
To even begin to understand what might have happened out there, we have to rewind. We have to go back. Because the real clues might just be hidden in the ship's final and very, very troubled voyage.
So this whole voyage seemed like it was cursed from the start. The original captain, a guy named Merritt, who the crew respected, got seriously ill and had to leave the ship. He was replaced by a 66-year-old retired sea dog, Captain Willis Wormel. Now, by the time the ship reached Rio de Janeiro to deliver its cargo of coal, Captain Wormel was already complaining to friends about his crew. You can just feel the bad blood starting to build. Then, the ship makes a stop for supplies in Barbados, and that's when things really start to go off the rails. And, listen to this quote. The first mate, a guy named Charles McClellan, gets drunk ashore in Barbados and is overheard making a direct threat. He says, "I'll get the captain before we get to Norfolk, I will." Wow. He actually got arrested for being so drunk and disorderly. Captain Wormel had to bail him out of jail just so they could set sail. You have to wonder, right? Is this the moment a mutiny started brewing?
This is the last time anyone ever heard from the Deering, and it is just plain weird. Just 3 days before the wreck was found, a lightship near Cape Lookout hailed them. And the person who answered from the Deering was not Captain Wormel. It was some other crewman, described as tall and thin, with reddish hair and a foreign accent. He calmly told the lightship that they'd lost their anchors in a storm. The keeper on the lightship also noticed that the crew was just kind of milling around on a part of the ship they weren't supposed to be on. And then that was it. Total silence.
As you can imagine, this story was a media sensation. The whole country was captivated by the mystery. And then, a few months into the investigation, a shocking piece of evidence washed up on shore that seemed like it was about to blow the case wide open.
It was the classic message in a bottle. And the message itself was absolutely explosive. It basically said the Deering had been captured by another boat and the crew was being handcuffed. This had to be the smoking gun. Piracy on the high seas. They even had the handwriting analyzed, and it looked like a match for the ship's engineer. For a moment, it really seemed like the mystery was solved.
But yeah, it was a total fake. The fisherman who found the note, he eventually confessed to federal agents that he had faked the whole thing. And his motive? He was hoping all the fame and publicity would help him land a better job. Can you believe it? This incredible clue turned out to be a dead end, and it just threw the entire investigation right back to square one.
So, with the pirate note completely debunked, what were the real possibilities? The official investigation had to regroup and start piecing together what really could have happened, and they focused on a few key theories. I mean, the U.S. government threw the kitchen sink at this thing. 5 different departments were involved, and they basically narrowed it down to 4 main ideas. First, you had mutiny, which made a lot of sense given the first mate's threat. Piracy was still on the table, with wild speculation about everyone from Russian communists to Prohibition-era Rome smugglers. Then, of course, there's Mother Nature, a hurricane. And finally, a really interesting theory, that maybe the Deering's fate was somehow connected to another ship, the SS Hewitt, which vanished in the exact same area at the exact same time.
But here's the thing. Every single one of these theories has a major hole in it. Let's start with mutiny. The tension on board was real, but there were no signs of a struggle. No bodies, no blood. It looked like an orderly abandonment. What about piracy? It's a great story, but there's just no actual evidence. Plus, the Deering was a slow-sailing ship, a really poor choice for smugglers to target. Okay, so what about a hurricane? Well, there were powerful storms in the area, but records showed the Deering was actually sailing away from the storm's path, and you probably wouldn't be casually making dinner if a monster storm was about to hit. You see, no single theory explains all the facts.
And so, without a conclusive answer, without that one piece that makes it all click, the story of the Carroll A. Deering passed from a criminal investigation into something else entirely. A legend.
That's right. After this massive effort from the Departments of Commerce, Treasury, Justice, the Navy, and the State Department, the case was officially closed in late 1922. The final verdict? There wasn't one. The fate of those 11 men and the final hours of their ship remain officially unknown.
They ended up having to dynamite the wreck to get it off the shoals so it wouldn't be a danger to other ships. Its timbers washed ashore for years after. But the story, well, the story of the ghost ship of Diamond Shoals remains perfectly preserved. Over a century later, it still holds all of its secrets. So I'll leave you with this. What do you think happened to the crew of the Carroll A. Deering?